You begin the book with Shinola in Detroit, Michigan. I get Austin. I get Nashville. I get Fargo. Okay, why is Detroit the rise of the rest?
Well, the whole book is around dozens of cities, but I start off with Detroit because it's such an amazing story. 100 years ago, Detroit was sort of the Silicon Valley of its time when the car was the technology of the day. Everybody wanted to be part of the car revolution. People moved to Detroit to be part of that. It was going gangbusters for several decades, and then lost about half its population. And then the year before we came with our Rise the Rest bus, the city of Detroit went bankrupt. So it was the top city, then it was really struggling, and now it's really fighting its way back. You mentioned Shinola way back. We also went back to another company called StockX. Neither of those companies existed 10 years ago. Both of them now have more than 1,000 employees in Detroit and are creating a new sense of possibility in Detroit. And that's really the story all across the country, which is why I decided to write the book, to tell the stories of these entrepreneurs building companies and these cities that are being renewed because of the work of new companies.
Is big tech helping in investment in Sioux Falls?
Well, has been more of a backlash, as you know, against big tech. That does create some opportunities for some entrepreneurs. Even, frankly, this difficult economy, you've already seen some big companies cut back on some of their initiatives that were kind of long-term growth initiatives. That creates an opening for entrepreneurs. And so I believe this next 5 or 10 years really could be great. We just need to focus on entrepreneurs everywhere, not just in a few places. And for the last decade, 75% of venture capital has gone to just 3 states. California, New York, and Massachusetts, 75%. So the other 47 states are fighting over 25%. The whole idea of Rise the Rest is to back those entrepreneurs. They're going to be very successful investments, as well as having a very powerful impact in terms of creating jobs and economic vitality in these communities, many of which have felt left out and left behind by this last wave of innovation.
What about the next couple of years, considering that there was a lot of ample venture capital available over the past 5 years? Going forward, a lot less is available. A lot of people are pulling back. There isn't the same kind of free money being thrown in terms of IPOs, and a lot less acceptance to highfalutin tech ideas. What do you think that will do to the pace of development?
Well, it might make it a little more difficult in Silicon Valley, but it actually likely will help in terms of the rise of the rest. And some of that is because it's always been more difficult for the entrepreneurs in these rising cities to get venture capital. Valuations have tended to be lower. The entrepreneurs have tended to be more scrappier, more bootstrappy, more capital efficient. So this change in the market where some of the high flyers in places like Silicon Valley are seeing a big reset, we're not seeing the same kind of reset in these rise of the rest cities. So I think that bodes well if we continue to make sure venture capital is everywhere. One great statistic in the book is over the last decade, 1,400 new regional venture capital firms have started up out in these rise of the rest cities. So that really bodes well for this next chapter.
I can't let you go without having some comment on Twitter going private and Elon Musk being at the helm of this. What's your view in how the view into entrepreneurs changes as it really becomes the mouthpiece, particularly even in a private way, the mouthpiece for individuals and politicians alike?
Well, I'm a big fan of Twitter. Was one of the early users, and certainly think Elon's one of the most creative entrepreneurs we've seen in this era. So don't want to bet against him. I think he does have some challenges, a little bit like the dog that caught the car, and it's a little bit now what? And I know he wants to make some moves around making it more of a town square, but I think he'll need to be careful in terms of making sure he doesn't lose users, doesn't lose advertisers, doesn't trigger more regulation. So really the first day of a new day for Twitter. I hope it goes well.
Steve, what should big tech do with a 10-year strategic plan? The massive cash buildup, selected companies with massive share buyback. They literally, it seems, don't have the imagination of what to do with the profit. Where should they be 10 years from now?
Well, obviously, some of these companies have had enormous success over the last decade, as you've said, and that gives them a lot of flexibility. But I think the market is saying, including with Facebook, while you need to lean in the future, you need to invest in things like the metaverse, you need to do it in a balanced way. I think you'll see more of that, more of the pressure from Wall Street around companies in terms of their investment strategies. As I said earlier, that actually creates an opportunity for entrepreneurs who can be disruptive. It's been hard to disrupt big tech in the last decade. It may get easier in the coming years.